You're probably seeing a whole bunch of empty spaces on these here bookshelves because I have too many books on my TBR, and you guys are going to help me choose what I'm reading in the month of May. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. Today's video is all about you helping me choose what I'm reading in the month of May. I have a lot of books. I've acquired a lot of books over the last, say, 18 months since I've really picked up reading again, and there's just so many good books that I want to get to, and I have a pretty free month in May in terms of reading. I've got two books that I definitely want to read, and that is Jade Legacy, which will be my audiobook for the month of May, and also the third book in the Night Angel trilogy, and the title of that one is escaping my brain at this very second. So that means I've only got two books, and normally I read between 5 to 7 books on any given month, so that's where you come in. In today's video we have 4 separate categories: the new release, the indie self-pub pick, the palate cleanser, and also the backlist. So within each category there are going to be 4 books. You can choose one from each category and put those in the comments down below. You can DM me on my Instagram if you don't like putting your comments public. That's absolutely fine. I do have a post over on my Instagram as well, which you can have a visual look at those books of what we have going on. At the end of the month, or just before the end of the month of April, I will tally all those up, and that will be my May TBR for 2022. Jumping into the categories, we're going to start with the new release. These are books that have come out within the last 12 to 24 months. There's a lot of reviews for these. People have been reading them, people have been excited about them, and I tend to buy a lot of new releases. But unless they're self-pub or indie, I don't necessarily put them high on my radar to read right there and then, but I'm hoping to get to some of these pretty soon. So the first book that we have, now fair warning, I'm not going to go too into depth in any of these. Likely I've done a book haul with them and I've explained it more there. The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. People loved this when it came out. I have heard that the fantastical elements within The Justice of Kings are quite minimal, and it's sort of like historical fantasy, crime, justice, all the good stuff, but that is book 1, which you can pick in the new release category. Book 2 in the new release category is The City of Dusk. This is Tara Sim's foray into adult fantasy, having previously written YA in the past. This one sounds pretty cool. I know a lot of people have picked this up recently. I think it's only come out in the last couple of months. This is another one that you can pick for a new release for me to read. The next new release I have is Bluebird by Seal Palate. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and the only thing I know about this is it's lesbian gunslingers in space. This is a space opera which I believe doesn't take itself too seriously, and it seems a bit cheeky, so that is also here for your pick. The only book that I don't have a physical copy of is The Rise of the Mages by Scott Drakeford. This is another one that came out this year. This author got picked up by it's Tor or Orbit, it's one of those two, and I've heard that it's a really fun, good debut for people who just want one of those exciting fantasy books. It's adventure. It sounds pretty cool on the blurb, which I read in one of my book hauls. So just to recap, in the new release category we have got Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, City of Dusk by Tara Sim, Bluebird by Seal Palate, had to look at the name again, and Rise of the Mages by Scott Drakeford, which you can pick. The next category that we have on my Choose My May TBR is the self-pub or indie pick. If you've been around for a while, you know that I am loving self-pub and indie fantasy at the moment, and I'm hoping to get to more and more as this channel grows or as I continue along with this journey, regardless of the subscriber count. We have again 4 books here, starting with Fangs of War by E.J. Doble. This is a young new author on the fantasy scene, and I have heard nothing but good things about this book. I don't want to read the blurb because I'm excited to get to this one this year, whether that be voted for in May or later on in the year as a self-pub pick. But yeah, very much looking forward to that one. That is book 1 that you can pick in this category. Book number 2 in this category is Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Rye Peterson. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is quite a glary cover, so I'm hoping that the side means that you can see it. This is one I'm also looking forward to getting to. Leslie from The Nerdy Narrative really enjoyed this book and gave it a 5-star review, and I jumped in and grabbed it once I saw that. I'm fairly new to Leslie's channel, but so far her reviews have been on the money for my own reading taste, so looking forward to getting to this one at some point as well. That is book 2 that you can vote for in this category. Next up, we have a new release, self-pub, and that is A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah. This is a debut. Actually, I think, yeah, all of these so far have been debut novels in the self-pub indie scene. Again, I don't want to read too much on this one because it is one that I'm looking forward to getting to. So if you've heard about this one and you've heard good things, then vote for me to read it and I can talk to you about it. And the last book I've chosen to go in this category is Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. Now, a lot of people here will know Elliot Brooks from her channel. She's a bit of a booktube darling and probably the most, I don't know, humble, wholesome human on the internet. So I'm looking forward to getting to this one. I read a whole bunch of good reviews for it, and they either go one or two ways. They love it or they don't love it. I'm hoping that I'm with the side that loves it, so you can also choose that one in the self-pub pick. So just to reiterate really quickly, those self-pub books were Fangs of War by E.J. Dobell, Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Rye Peterson, Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah, and Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. Let me know what one I should read in the comments down below. The next category we have is the backlist. We all have a TBR backlist. These are books that we've bought because we've heard about them or we've seen them and the cover looked pretty in the store, and we just put them on our shelves and forget that they exist. Well, the time is now to read one of my backlist books, starting up with The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. Now, I've heard that this is a really different take on fantasy. It's about working together. It's not about fighting one another. And I am very, very curious also. That cover is just... But I've heard really good things about this one. And it's a bit of a different spin on standard fantasy where it's all clash, clash, bang, bang. The next one in this category is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is rock and roll meets questy fantasy from what I've been told. There is a sequel called Bloody Rose, which is somewhere on this shelf, and this is about, it says the boys are back in town on the front, so I've got a lot of music references from what I hear, and it's about some old mercenaries doing one last job from what I gather. Take that with a grain of salt, I don't really know, I haven't read the back. But I bought this because I like rock, and I was interested in Bloody Rose. I was like, well, probably should read the first one first. So there's that one, which you can pick. The next one I have is Son of the Storm by Suyi Davies Okenbawa. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I apologize if I did not. This is a different take on fantasy as well. I think there are, from what I've heard, there's a lot of deeper conversations in this book, things like racism and xenophobia, and I really like when fiction does that and they start having really big conversations about things that are quite prevalent in our life. So I've been looking forward to getting to this one as well. I think this was Joshana's favourite book of 2021, and I believe there's a sequel coming out either this year or early next year. And the last one in the backlist category is Scythe by Neil Schusterman. Now, I don't read a lot of YA. This is pegged as YA dystopian, and I've been told that even if I don't read YA, to give this series a go because it is the next best thing since sliced Margaret Atwood and dystopia. So I don't know. If you think I should read Scythe, then let me know down below. And the last category that I have for you to pick a book out of today is the Palate Cleanser. These are books that you can sort of slip in between other reads that you've got, whether you've got a whole bunch of big reads, and these are books that are like 200 to 300 pages. They're long-standing series, and you just sort of pop one in as you're reading along and keep up with the main storyline. Now, the first one of these I'm not going to go on about because everyone's heard of the Dresden Files, but I am up to book number 3, which is Grave Peril. I have been listening to these on audio when I can get them from Libby and the library. They're quick, easy reads. James Masters, who does the audiobooks, is very good. I've heard a lot of people don't like the first few of the Jim Butcher Dresden File books, and I can understand why. I think the first one was quite misogynistic, should we say, and I had some trouble with some of the language and how women were treated in that book, and I wasn't going to pick up the second one, but then I heard that it gets quite good and there's a reason for it, and that comes to the front after book 4. So I thought, okay, well, I'll read up to book 4 and see what happens. So book 3 is the next one on that list. Now, the next one I've not heard talked about on BookTube a lot, and I hope to change that because I don't reread, and this is a book that, if it is chosen, I will have read 3 times, and that is Dampier by Barb and J.C. Hendy. This is sort of high classic fantasy with an urban fantasy feel. To me, it's basically like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but without all the urban stuff. From what I can remember, it's been a long time since I've read it. It says part human, part vampire, a perfect hunter. From what I remember, it is the Dampier, and also there's like an elf companion who's a bit cheeky. And yeah, I really like this book to the point where I've read it twice now, and I didn't realize it was a series. The series is called the Noble Dead Saga, I believe, and there's 14 books. So I want to read the series, I want to read it in its entirety, and it starts with this book here. The next one that you can pick for me, which if you can just pick if you want to be cruel, I don't read a lot of romance, and I didn't realize that romance was the subgenre of this series, but this is Bloodbound by Patricia Briggs. This is the Mercy Thompson series, book number 1. It's a long-running series. I don't know if it's completed. I think it may still be ongoing, and I have no idea what it's about, except that she looks like a badass, and love a strong badass female character. Don't know about the romance, but if you want, you can pick that one. I own the first 2 books, and I'll read the first 2 books to see how we go. And the last one that you can pick in this category is Exile by R.A. Salvatore. This is book 2 in the Legend of Drizzt series, or book 2 in the Forgotten Realms, which is just, I think there's like 35 books in this series nowadays. I read Homeland last year. It took a little while for my brain to get into the language of this series, but once I did, I really enjoyed it. So I have books 2 to 6 that I own that are still to read. So if you want to vote for that one as my palate cleanser, these are nice and short. They're like 300 pages, 339, but they read very, very quickly. So you can vote for that one as well. I realised that I forgot to run through the books again quickly at the end of the backlist. So the backlist was The Black Coast by Mike Brooks, Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames, Son of the Storm by Sunyi Davies Ockenbauer and Scythe by Neil Schusterman. And then in the palate cleanser category, we had Grave Peril by Jim Butcher, Dampier by Barb and J.C. Hendy. We also had Bloodbound by Patricia Briggs, and Exile by R.A. Salvatore. So there's 4 categories. There are 4 books in each. Choose one from each category if you want to tell me what I should be reading in the month of May, and let me know in the comments below. That's it, guys. If you like the content, give it one of these. If you want to see more of it, then click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.